Well, Representative Heather Scott, thank you so much for joining us. And you are going to talk to us about the importance of citizen activism. And this is like your wheelhouse. You do it all day long. So I figured it'd be easy for you to do today. And people, of course, always need to hear it.
Well, thank you, Misty. And it's great to be on with you guys. And it's great to see new activists out there, because that's ultimately what I always try to remind citizens is all power is in the people. And if you exercise that power, it's amazing how much government changes. And so I applaud you for wanting to pursue that. Some things I always remind people in general, we get the government we allow. And ultimately, we always want to blame government, and we always are angry or frustrated with government, but we allow what we get. And the other part of that is that elections have consequences. And, you know, we're seeing what's happening with the tyranny across our state, and it happened overnight. It appears to happen overnight, but our complacency has allowed what's happened in some of the decisions that's being made at a statewide level to invade every one of our daily lives and our freedoms. It didn't just happen overnight, and elections do have consequences. So I'm glad you're getting involved. I'm excited. Health Freedom Idaho is a great group, and they always seem to be active. And so they've asked me to talk a little bit on how to talk to your legislators. And I'm going to start by saying you need to figure out who your legislators are. And some, you know, all this is new to me not too long ago, so it's not that hard to learn. But I think the first basic thing you need to learn is that you have 2 representatives and 1 senator that represent you. And those are also called legislators. So those terms are sometimes used interchangeably, and sometimes it's confusing. They say your legislators. Well, your legislators are your 2 representatives and your senator. And how do you know who those are? You have to figure out what district you live in. And the districts are set up across the state. There's 35 districts. And there's a place online, if you go to my website, I think you can link to it, that you can find out what district you live in and who your legislators are. And that's the first thing you got to determine is who they are. That being said, just about the time you figured it out, and for all of us who have figured it out, it's going to change this year, because every 10 years, they change the lines and they mix it all up and they change the district numbers. So you may be in District 22 this year, and you may be in District 17 next year. But that your new number will be good for 10 years, and that will be your district. So I caution you that in this is 2020, so it will be changing in 2022. So after in 2 years, your district will change. So just about the time you think you've got your legislators listening to you, you might get new ones. So something to remember in talking to legislators is they're not rock stars. They're not superstars. They're not rock stars. Even though some of them think they are, they're just people. They're just regular people like you and me. They're just regular people that happen to get motivated to step up and maybe run for office or make change. And that being said, they don't know everything. And sometimes they might want you to think they know everything, but they don't know everything. But they like the appearance that they do. So that is key, I think, is they don't like to look stupid. And a lot of times I hear feedback from citizens. They say, well, they're not listening. They won't listen. Or they won't speak up, or they won't stand up. A lot of legislators are afraid to speak up or stand up or basically make a statement unless they know all the facts, because they don't want to look stupid. They want to keep that image that you know they're smart. And so that's one thing I think to keep in mind as you're dealing with these people. They're just regular people, but they They don't want to look stupid. Their lives are, I mean, to give them some credit, their lives are like open to everybody. So they're in a kind of a weird position, and even though they sometimes they're not making bad decisions, because maybe they're making a bad decision because they don't know the facts. Maybe they do know the facts and that's just where they stand, but you have to figure that out, and that's your job as a citizen to figure out, why are they making the decisions? Have they been educated to the point where they can make an educated decision? And is that decision, is it protecting my freedoms, or is it hurting or harming me? So those are things, it's just little things to keep in mind. You may want to know what party they're in. That sometimes makes a difference, because it's a good starting point to where their principles lie. So the next thing to know is kind of, you want to be able to talk their language a little bit. And I think on the call later, you're going to hear, just some of the terminology. It's like a different world, the legislature. They talk different. There's different processes, and I think we're going to talk about that later in the call. So when you do talk to a legislator, you don't want to sound uneducated. Especially on your issue, you will be educated, but you don't want to sound uneducated, and that means knowing the authority of your legislator. What is the role of a legislator? Is the legislator's job to fix potholes on your county road? Probably not. But I can tell you, I get a lot of calls about potholes. Is your legislator's job to you have to know their authority and what they can actually do. So that's another thing, and I don't know if we'll have time to get into that deep, but maybe if there's some questions on that. The other thing that's good when conversing and talking to legislators or any elected official is know what their schedule looks like. And I can tell you, with the schedule for legislators, we are in session 3 months a year. And what session means is that's when everybody from the state, from all the different areas, go down to Boise and vote on laws. And we're voting on laws for 3 months straight, and there's over 600 or 700 bills that we're looking at and reading. And like I said, we're not experts on everything. So I'll be voting on hospital legislation, on vaccinations, on septic systems, the whole gamut. And you're put in that role to make decisions, and you want to make educated decisions. So remember, if you want to talk to your legislator and it's during January, February, March, they may have some other things on their mind, and it might be hard to be able to persuade them on your issue. The other thing I suggest is you need to build a relationship with your legislators. Don't wait until you have a problem to contact your legislators. You need to build that relationship with them, so when you do have a problem, you can go to them and they know who you are, they trust you, there's some kind of a relationship built. There's ways to do that. Maybe don't call them or email them, or maybe don't bother them while they're in session unless it's an immediate issue you need to address. If you don't want them to vote a certain way on a bill, or you have a problem with a statement they made in public, that's one thing. But if you're serious concerned about property taxes in general, you want to get to know your legislator, you want to build a relationship, ask them out for coffee, ask them if they have time for a phone call, go to their events. The one thing about the Idaho state legislators, every senator and every representative is up for election every other year. So they're 2-year terms. So literally, you could clean house in 1 year. You could replace 105 legislators and get a brand new legislative body. That being said, they're almost always campaigning or having events. So a good way to really get to know a legislator is maybe host an event for them. Say, hey, I want to invite my neighbors over and we want to just talk to you in general or get to know you better. That's a good way to build a relationship. And maybe don't put any pressure on them of what you want yet, but just to get to know them, because they're going to need your help in the election. And so Or maybe you want to show them how influential you are. When 50 people show up to your house for a barbecue, you invite them. Maybe not so much that you agree with them, but you want people to get to know them, and you want them to know your concerns. Pay attention to your legislators. There's some really good resources out there that I'm sure Health Freedom Idaho can point you to, that you can actually follow their track record and their voting record. Sometimes you'll get lip service. I cannot tell you the times I've had people call me and say that they were told that their legislator voted against something, and I knew better. And I said, you better check their voting record. And they said, well, they said it passed and they were happy. I said, check their voting record. And they will give you lip service and tell you what you want them to hear. So you need to follow up. The one thing I've learned in politics, a lot of people lie. Even legislators, they will lie. They'll lie to your face. They will do it. So you really have to check things and confirm and build that relationship. So then once you build that relationship, figure out what you want from them and what they need from you. And you know, they need help. My guess is they need help. If your concern is child vaccinations or parental rights, what is super helpful for legislators is talking points. Talking points that are bulleted. Not, you know, I remember like the first time I got in and someone gave me this thick book and like all these notes, and they said, here, now that we got a good one, I want you to fix this. And I'm like, you don't have time. That's the one thing your legislators don't have, is a lot of time. So any chance that you can get to talk to them, make sure you've got your talking points down, make sure you're concise in your thoughts and what you want to say or what you need from them. And that's something else. So figure out, do you need a government fix? Do you need a bill passed? Have you tried to fix your problem on your own, or are you just calling your legislator because you kind of just want someone to fix it for you? A lot of times, people will call me, but they haven't done any of their own homework. It's really good if you try to pursue the agencies. I've got, over this last COVID issue, I've had so many people call me on unemployment. And unless you have spent the time and pushed back or fought and done your part of the job, it's really hard for me to just jump into a middle of a situation and put pressure on government that's treating you bad if you have not done your homework or done your part of the job. I'm not sure if that makes sense. Give me a nod if that makes sense. You need to help your legislator, not just depend on them to fix your problem. That is one thing legislators do. They do have access to the directors and you know, but you have to try to deal with them on your own. Administrative rules are critical, as I think might be mentioned or is mentioned. That's with all the executive agencies. And when your legislators write their bills, the more specific they are at writing their bills, the less the executive branch gets to write their rules about the bills. So anytime you do go to your legislator and ask them to write a bill, make sure you are very crystal clear on exactly what you want out of that bill. It's really not that hard to write a bill. People will just give me an idea. Sometimes I just sign a permission slip and they can have me a bill usually written within 24 hours. So if you've got an idea, I encourage you to talk to your legislator about it. Ask them if they will at least draft you up a bill. They might not be interested in running it, but they might be interested in drafting it. Let's see. Another way to build that relationship with your legislators are central committees. If you go to your central committees, a lot of times your legislators are giving monthly reports, and it's a good time to ask them questions or get to know them, or maybe say, I appreciate what you said up there. You'll get some one-on-one time when they're there out in public. Donating always gets their attention. So that's something that always does get their attention. And then help them set up an event, I told you, and then thank them. If your legislator does something that you appreciate or you notice, thank them. Another thing that catches their attention is if you watch them on the House floor. If there's an important vote, you can watch everything that happens in Boise online. And if there's a really important vote and they don't speak up on your behalf, you may just call and say, hey, I was watching on the House floor. I was hoping that you were going to stand up and say something about our district. This really affects a lot of us in our district. It would be nice if you would speak out more for us. So sometimes they need that nudging. I could go on. I don't know how much I'm going on time, but I think that covers some of the basics about your legislators. Is that good, Misty?
Yes, absolutely. I was remembering when I first got started and I met with you and then Representative Ron Nate, and he said to me something that stuck with me, and I think that it'll help other people. He said it really was upsetting to him when the only people that he was hearing from is the lobbyists. And how sad is that people have grown so complacent that our legislators are sometimes only hearing from lobbyists. So that really put in perspective to me how little citizens were actually being active. And absolutely, if the only people legislators hear from are the lobbyists who are getting paid to influence our legislators, then we are getting the government that we deserve because we're not taking part.
Well, and I will comment on that just a bit. You know, when we're in Boise, there's a lobby event. There's 2 or 3 lunches and 2 or 3 dinners every day to choose from. And it's very convenient because you've worked your butt off for 6 or 8 hours or 12 hours and you just want to go unwind, and there's somebody has a meal in front of you. You're going to have a presentation on what their issues are. Or when you need an expert. I mean, when I'm voting on a dentist bill, I don't know much about dentists, and so when I have a lobbyist that says, well, here's what the bill does, here's why people don't like it, and here's why people do like it. I'm hearing both sides of that bill, but I'm not hearing the citizen part of that bill. And that's the problem. And I get it. Citizens are busy trying to work so they can pay their taxes, so they can put more good government. I mean, it's just this vicious cycle. But the citizens really need to be engaged in that, because we do rely on lobbyists when we're down there, because you're just not an expert on these issues, and these people are nice to you. They take you out to dinner, or they come to your office. They just, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time? Here's the bill. Here's the problem we have with it. You learn something, and that's why I say it's critical to follow these bills and to be able to point out issues with them and educate your legislator in simple bullet forms on why it's a bad bill for you, the citizen. And there's starting points. Not every bill does a whole bunch of bad, but there's some great starting points. One of the websites, Growing Freedom, every bill is tracked, and it just says, does this help citizens? Does this hurt citizens? Or does it neutral? And so if you can just follow that and maybe just get involved, it's super. So thank you, Misty.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I would add to that, just drawing from our experiences, and I know Sarah will relate to this, is getting the runaround. When we try to go and meet with our legislators, we've called, they're so packed, they can't meet today, they have this thing and that thing. Or, and then you finally do get in and you get lip service and they're telling you one thing, and then you get into the voting committee and they voted against what they told you that they would do. And so expect that. I think I had no idea, because I sort of take people at face value, that I would be given the runaround in that way. Like, for example, it's not important if you go to that committee hearing, nothing's going to be decided. You can't even testify anyway. These are like the ones I've heard now repeated by everybody. And it is important to be there, because let's say it's a print hearing where you can't testify anyway. You're still hearing the arguments from both sides and preparing for your arguments for when you can do it, when you can testify. So it is important to be at each and every meeting that has to do, or at least be listening online. But when somebody tells you it is not important to be there, that's my, like, ding, 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 I must be there.
That's good.